Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. So this is .NET 7 Blazor WebAssembly JWT authentication series. So it is part 6 video on this series where in this video we are going to invoke secured endpoint from our Blazor WebAssembly application, and also we are going to implement validating the JWT token at our API. Okay, now when we logged into our application, we are able to read the login information and we are binding to our menu. Now, after successful login, let's try to navigate to another page. Okay. So in that another page, we are going to invoke a API. Okay. That API must be a secured API, means only authenticated users can consume. That implementation we are going to do in this video. So in our Blazor application, go to our login page, okay? And here is our successful login, right? Okay, status. So here we have to implement the navigation, right? So what I will do on successful login, I am going to navigate the user to the fetch.razor page, which is a default page where it will display weather forecast, okay? But it will uses uh, JSON file, okay, which is a sample JSON file in WebAssembly. Now what I will do, same weather forecast controller is a default controller for any, sorry, weather weather forecast is a default example for any .NET application. So in API also we will have one endpoint, okay, weather forecast endpoint. So what I will do, I will remove this static JSON route, okay, from Blazor WebAssembly. I'm going to use API endpoint here. Okay, that means I'm going to consume it from the API project. Okay, so for that, let me change this route. So remove this and let's add the weather forecast route. Okay, now let's go to our login page. Inject the navigation manager service. Inject navigation manager. Okay, underscore navigation manager. Okay, now using that I can navigate to fetch data route. Score navigation dot navigate to. Okay, and here I can pass the route like fetch data. Let's check in the component fetch data. Okay, now I want to display menu item also for this fetch data. Okay, here once I log in, I want to display the fetch data menu item. Okay, for that go to main layout, the shared folder we have main layout, right? So here next to the JWT auth demo home link, I am going to add the my fetch data menu link. For that I am going to use the authorize view. Okay, so authorize view, and here I will add authorized child component. Okay, and let me copy this, add it here. Okay, color will be same, underline will be null, and here class not M or it said ML means margin left. Okay, and here it will be fetch data. Okay, and I will name it label like weather forecast. Okay, so let's check. Let's see, since our token is in the local browser storage, right? After refreshing, I can see the weather forecast. Okay, so now what I will do, let me clear the JWT token, okay, so that I can re-log in. Okay, now I want to re-log in. Okay, so @gmail.com. Okay, pass. Sorry, I have given wrong password. See, I'm navigated to the weather forecast. Okay, if you check in the network call, here is the weather forecast API, invoking our API endpoint. Okay, and that response automatically binding because all the logic is predefined in the our Blazor WebAssembly template, binding everything. Only change we did, we added our weather forecast API endpoint instead of the JSON endpoint. Okay, so far so good, but there is no uh, authentication for this API. Anyone can use this API. That means let's remove the token. Okay, and if I refresh also, I am able to getting the fetch data, right? So non-authenticated user also getting the API. So I want to make this API as a secured API. Okay. So for that, I have to decorate the API controller. Here is the endpoint, right? I have to add attribute like authorize. Means only authorized users can access this endpoint. Okay. So now to access this endpoint, user need to request with a authorization header where its value will be JWT token. Okay, that means our API must validate the token as well. Okay, so to validate the token in the API project, we have to register the JWT authentication service. Okay, so before registering that service, we require a NuGet package. So go to API project dependencies. Okay, and go to manage NuGet packages and search like JWT barrier, and you can see a Microsoft ASP.NET Core.Authentication.jwt barrier. Okay, install this package. The package is successfully installed, and we can cross verify here in the packages. Okay, here is the package. Now let's register our JWT service. Okay, so builder.services.add authentication. Okay, and here we have to define the name of the authentication type. Okay, I can give like JWT bearer defaults. Okay, that comes from Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.Authentication.jwt barrier library. Okay, default scheme. Just it is a constant. If you hover it, you can see barrier. Okay, we are defining authentication type is a JWT barrier authentication type, and we have to extend this authentication. Okay, and we have to add our JWT barrier. Okay, so here we are going to configure the validation rules for our JWT authentication. Okay, first we are using token settings, right? In JSON file, we saved some tokens if you recall previously. So these token values are used to create the JWT token. So same token values need to be used for validation also. Okay. So here, first I need to get the token data from the JSON. So for that, what I will do, where token settings equal to, I am going to use this line of code. Okay. Copy that and extend like get. And here I can specify the type token settings so that I can read data from the JSON server with the typecast. Okay. Now token setting data is available. Let's configure the validation rules. Okay. So options dot token validation parameters equal to, okay, new token validation parameter. Okay. So first I want to validate issuer. Okay. So make it true and then valid issuer. I have to assign the value also. So value I can fetch from the settings. Okay. Same way, now validate the audience. Okay, validate audience, make it true, and valid audience. Okay, we have to assign the value from the token. Okay, next I can validate the sign-in security key. Okay, validate issuer sign-in key equal to true and issuer sign-in key. So here, let's go to our services, user service, okay, and go for JWT generating method, okay. So where is that? Here. Here is the generated token. And here we observe we are generating some symmetric key, right? Same way we have to generate the symmetric key using our security key. So copy this object and assign to issuer sign-in key. Okay. Clock skew. So here clock skew means by default it will add additional 5 minutes expiration for the token. So I am making it to exact expiration time. What we are going to add it in the at the time of creation. At the time of creation, I have 30 minutes, right? So 30 minutes only I am uh, checking for the validation. If you don't specify time span 0 for clock skew, it will make our token active for 35 minutes. Additional 5 minutes it will add. Okay. So these are the validation rules of the JWT token verification. So validating issuer, validating audience, validating signing key. These are the rules. So same rules are used for the generating the token also. The security key, issuer, audience. Okay. So same rules are adding here. Since we added authorization attribute on the controller action method level, right? So let's run the application and check whether we are getting 404 unauthorized or not. Okay. Okay. If I refresh the page, see, I am getting error here and data also not loaded. If I check network calls, see here, 401 unauthorized, 401 unauthorized. Okay. So now to make our request authorized, pre-request, we need to pass our JWT token as a authorization value. Okay, for that, so what I will do, I'm going to create a delegate handler. Okay, so delegate handler will bypass the request before sending to the server. So there I am going to add the authorization header value. Okay, so close all files and go to our Blazor WebAssembly application. In the provider folder, let me add a new class. Okay, so custom HTTP handler. Okay, and let me inherit delegating handler. Okay, so that comes from system.net.http, and here I am going to override send async method. Okay, so now here what I will do. So for whenever this custom delegate handler is integrated with the HTTP instance, this method will execute before sending to the server. Okay, means I want to bypass some logic before sending to the server. So here what I will do, if request dot request URI dot absolute path dot to lower dot contains login. Okay, and same way I'm checking the routes. Okay, API routes, API URLs or registration. So let me go to my API controller, user controller, and check for the valid routes, register and login. So copy this register. Okay. So when the endpoints contains login or register, then don't intercept the executing flow. Okay, we are allowing the flow normal way. Okay, other than those two routes. Okay, then I am going to try to add the JWT token for the each request. So JWT token we are storing in our local storage, right? So if you recall, or you can go to our login controller, and here we are storing our JWT token to the local storage. And same thing we are fetching in the custom auth provider from the local storage as well. Okay, same way I want to fetch in my custom handler also. So for that, first let's inject the iLocal storage service in our custom handler. Okay, so let me create a constructor. Okay, iLocal storage, local storage service. Okay, okay, now let's read the token from the browser local storage. Okay, token equal to underscore local storage get item. Okay, so it should be awaited. Okay, and async added, here also add await, here also add await. Okay, and here pass the key of our local storage. So key is JWT access token, right? So copy it and add it. Okay, if at all token exists, means user logged in and the token is stored in the browser local storage. Okay, the token exists, then we are going to add the authorization header to our request. Okay, so request, here we have HTTP request message as input, right? So same request dot headers dot add. Okay, and give the header key value like authorization. Okay, this is the default key for authorization. So our is a barrier token, right? I have to frame the thing dynamically. Okay, so mirror base or token, JWT token. Okay, so token. Okay, after adding, we are again normally executing our normal flow. Okay, that is my delegate handler. Okay, and this delegate handler need to be registered in our program.cs file. Okay, so here in the program.cs file, builder.services.add scope. Okay, so here I can add like a custom HTTP handler. Okay, so far so good. We have created the delegate handler, but we have to invoke the delegate handler for every HTTP client instance API call invoke. Okay, so invoking this custom HTTP handler like this approach of injecting HTTP client is bit difficult. Okay, so in general in .NET there are a lot of different techniques for invoking the HTTP client instance. In that HTTP using HTTP client factory is the one of the best approach. Okay, so instead of using creating HTTP client instance scope and injecting the client instance directly here, what I will do, I am going to use the HTTP client factory, and in that HTTP client factory I am going to use the named type client approach and implement the HTTP client instance. Okay, but to work with HTTP client factory in Blazor WebAssembly application, we need to install one more package. Okay, so in the Blazor WebAssembly, go to dependencies, packages, and manage NuGet package. So search like extensions.http and you can see Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.http extension. Install the package. Sorry, not Microsoft.ASP.NET Core.http extension. Here there is another is there, right? Microsoft.extensions.http. I need to install this. Sorry, not this one. This one we need to install. Okay, it is installed successfully in Blazor application. You can see here as well. Okay. Now let's register the name type technique for to use HTTP client factory. Okay. So what I will do, I will comment this line of code. Okay. And one more thing, if you our Blazor WebAssembly application if depends on different domains, at that time also this approach will won't work because it will only accept one kind of URL here. Okay, so at that time also we have to go for a high HTTP client factory approach. Okay, but this will only works when when your application purely depends upon only one domain API. Okay, so that is one disadvantage as well. So builder.services.add HTTP client. Okay, I told I'm going to use named technique, right? So named technique is nothing. We are going to register the HTTP client with a name. So same name, I am going to use it for creating the HTTP client instance as well. Okay. So here I am going to give a name. So I am giving name like .7 API. Your API name, any name you can give. Okay. And options I can configure like base URL, all those things. Okay. So option dot base address equal to, I can copy this. Okay. So now I have to use the HTTP client factory for creating the HTTP client instance. Okay. So for that, open all the components. I want to change the existing HTTP client instance. So login I want, registration I want, and fetch data I want. So first go to registration. So here we are using HTTP client instance directly, right? Now we cannot use like that. Now what I have to do? At the rate inject HTTP client factory. Okay, HTTP client factory. Okay, and I can remove this HTTP client instance. Okay, now Here I need HTTP client instance. Here I need HTTP client instance. So let me create where HTTP client equal to underscore HTTP client dot create client. So this client create client method ultimately create the HTTP client instance only. But here I can provide the name of the client so that instance will be HTTP client instance will get all the configurations that we registered here when we pass the name. So my name is .7 API, right? Same name I have to give here. Okay. So now I can pass this HTTP client instance. Okay, same way I can do for API call also. Replace with HTTP client. Okay. And fix it in login also. So remove this HTTP client, inject the inject the HTTP client factory underscore HTTP client factory. Okay. And here where HTTP client equal to HTTP client factory dot create and name of the HTTP client registration. Okay. Okay. And in the fetch data also, let's do same thing. Okay, let me copy it, replace it. Okay, let's copy this, add it here and use HTTP client. Okay, that's it. Now I have to map the our delegate handler. Where is the delegate handler? Map the delegate handler to the this domain. So for that I can extend it registration dot add HTTP message handler and its type. Its type is custom HTTP handler. Okay, that's it. Automatically, whenever this domain endpoint is invoking, this delegate handler will automatically execute it. Let's check now. Okay, first let me remove the token. Okay, token not exist. Okay, go to login page. Just refresh the page. Okay, let's try to log in. Okay, let's log in. Go to network calls, clear network calls, click on login. See, I am able to get the data. If I check the request, see here, I am able to add the authorization header. So this logic we added in our delegate handler means it is successfully bypassing before sending. Okay, same way if you check the login, there won't be any token adding. Okay, that is because we have a condition here for registration and login, no need to add. Okay, so that means we have successfully uh, consuming the secured endpoint using JWT token as a authorization header value. Okay, so next we are going to implement or protecting the Blazor WebAssembly route by implementing the authorization flow in our Blazor WebAssembly application. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video delivered some useful content to you all. If you like the video, please do support by subscribing to channel, and also please don't forget to like and share the video. Soon we are going to meet with new content. Until then, signing off.